There are moments in life when you're just living your day. Maybe you're at work, running errands, scrolling your phone, or sitting in traffic. Everything seems fine. And then suddenly, you're not fine at all. Your heart starts pounding out of nowhere. Your chest tightens. Maybe anger floods in, or panic, or sadness so heavy it feels like someone just pulled the ground out from under you. And the worst part, you don't even understand why. That moment, that shift, is what we call a trigger. A trigger is anything, big or small, that sets off an emotional reaction that feels bigger than the moment you're in. It could be a sound, a smell, a memory, a word someone says, even a look someone gives you. And suddenly, you're not in the present moment anymore. Your body and your mind are reacting like you're in danger, even if you're sitting safely at your kitchen table. The thing about triggers is they can feel like emotional landmines. One minute you're walking down the path of your day, the next, boom, you've stepped on something that blows you apart inside. It doesn't matter how strong you are, how much you've healed, or how hard you try to stay grounded. Triggers can bypass all of that because they connect directly to parts of your story that still feel tender or unhealed. And I want to say this up front. Being triggered doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do: protect you from harm. But here's the thing. When you live with bipolar disorder, trauma, anxiety, or depression, those triggers can feel louder, heavier, and harder to recover from. And if we're not prepared for them, they can completely derail our day, our relationships, and even our sense of safety. So today, I want to talk about how we can learn to see those landmines before we step on them, and how we can respond with more compassion when we do. Because triggers are not going away completely, but with the right tools, we can learn how to navigate them without letting them blow up everything we've worked so hard to build. Let me share one of my biggest triggers, one I honestly hate talking about, because it opens up a lot of old shame. In the past, during hypomanic episodes, I was irresponsible with money. And I don't say that lightly. And I don't say it with pride. I say it because it's the truth. And I also need you to hear this. In hypomania, it never felt like a choice I could control. It felt like my brain switched channels without asking me. Like urgency took over, and the only thing that made sense in that moment was do it now, spend now, fix it now, buy the thing now. And then the crash would come with the shame. This is why I hate when people casually joke about, quote, blowing their paycheck, or, quote, retail therapy, or when someone says, almost laughing, quote, some people are just irresponsible with money. Because for me, that is not a joke. It's a wound. It takes me straight back to a version of myself who was unwell and undiagnosed, who was trying to survive a brain state that overrode judgment, patience, and long-term thinking. I know some will hear this and say, come on, you had control. You chose it. And I get why it looks that way from the outside. But if you've lived with bipolar and hypomania, you know how real it is to feel hijacked by your own mind. That doesn't mean there's no responsibility. It means there's also an illness at play. And those two things can be true at the same time. So here's what that trigger looks like for me now. I'm in a conversation and someone throws out a money joke about being so bad with spending, or a comment about people who can't manage their finances. My chest tightens, my vision narrows. I feel defensive, exposed, like I need to explain my whole life in 30 seconds so they'll understand I wasn't just being reckless. I was unwell. These days, I do a few things differently in those moments. First, I name it gently to myself. I'm triggered. This is a memory and a symptom, not my present. Second, I ground my body, feet on the floor. Slow exhale. Feel my hands. Look for 5 things I can see. Third, I set a boundary if I need to. Hey, money jokes are tough for me. It's a health thing. Can we shift topics? Fourth, I delay action. If that trigger stirs up an urge to fix something with spending, I use a 24-hour rule. No decisions until I'm regulated. Fifth, I lean on my own plan. Spending safeguards, accountability, the tools I've put in place when I'm well, so I'm supported if a storm rolls in. I'm grateful to be in treatment now. I'm grateful for the tools, the guardrails, the people who get it. But that doesn't erase the old pain. And it doesn't mean triggers disappear. It just means I meet them differently, with more truth, with more compassion, with a plan that keeps me safe. And if this is you too, if money is one of those tender places where hypomania once took the wheel, please hear me. You are not your past episodes. You're a person who lived through something real, and you're learning new ways to be safe, steady, and kind to yourself. That's not weakness. That's recovery. That's growth. Here's what's so important to understand about triggers. They bypass logic completely. When you're triggered, your brain is not calmly weighing pros and cons or thinking, what's the most rational way to handle this? No. Your nervous system takes takes over. That's because triggers activate the same survival response we're wired with as human. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. This is the same system that kept our ancestors alive when there was a tiger in the bushes. But the tricky part is that your brain can't always tell the difference between a real, immediate threat and a memory or emotional wound that feels like danger. When you hit a trigger, your body says, fight. You feel the urge to lash out, argue, defend yourself, or prove your worth. Flight. You feel like you need to escape, leave the room, shut down the conversation, avoid the person or place at all costs. Freeze. You feel stuck, numb, unable to move forward or even think clearly. Fawn. You immediately try to appease others or keep the peace, even at the expense of your own feelings, because you believe pleasing someone will keep you safe. Here's the kicker. While all this is happening, your logical, rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, basically goes offline. It's not that you don't want to think clearly, it's that you physiologically can't. Your nervous system has taken the wheel, and until you significantly signal safely back to your body you're operating in survival mode, you're just not going to make it all the way back there completely. And this is why triggers feel so intense and so hard to control. Your brain and body are convinced you're in danger, even when the danger is in the past. When I think back to the financial trigger I shared earlier, that's exactly what happens. Someone makes a joke or says something about being irresponsible with money, and boom, I'm not in the present anymore. My body is right back in those hypomanic episodes where I felt out of control and ashamed. My heart pounds and my chest gets tight. And I can't think about what's actually happening in the moment because my body is screaming, protect yourself. So the first step in dealing with a trigger is understanding that your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to keep you safe. But once you know that, you can start using tools to bring yourself out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn and back into the present. Now that we understand what's actually happening in the body during a trigger, the next question is, how do we catch it before it blows up our whole day? Because here's the thing, if we can notice the early warning signs, if we can see that emotional landmine before we step on it, we have a much better chance of grounding ourselves before we spiral. So what does that look like? First, track your patterns. One of the best ways to spot triggers early is to pay attention to when they tend to show up. Is it certain conversations, certain people, specific places, smells, or sounds? For my example, or for any example, Maybe you realize you always feel on edge after scrolling social media sometimes. Or maybe every time someone raises their voice, your stomach knots. Second, notice your body first. Triggers often show up in your body before your mind catches up. Do you suddenly feel your chest tighten, your jaw clench, your shoulders tense? Does your heart race, or do you feel hot, shaky, or like you want to leave the room? These are clues that you might be stepping on a trigger, even if you're not sure why yet. Third, pay attention to urges. When we're triggered, we often feel an urge to react quickly, to argue, to withdraw, to people please, to distract ourselves with a behavior. If you notice yourself thinking, I need to fix this right now, or I need to get out of here, or I can't let this person be mad at me, that can be a sign you're triggered. Fourth, keep a trigger log. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just a quick note in your phone or journal when you notice a reaction that feels bigger than the moment. Over time, you'll start to see the patterns that make it easier to spot those emotional landmines in advance. Here's the truth. Triggers rarely come out of nowhere. There are always small signals leading up to the explosion. We just have to train ourselves to recognize them. And once you can see those signals, you can step back and say, okay, I'm triggered. My body is responding, but I don't have to let this take over my entire day. Once you can spot those early signs, the next step is to disarm the landmine or trigger before it blows up your entire day. That's where grounding strategies come in. Grounding is simply anything that pulls you out of the spiral in your mind and brings you back into your body in the present moment. You're basically signaling to your nervous system, we're safe. We don't need to stay in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn anymore. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. These are strategies you can use anywhere, at any time. First, we mention this often, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It forces your brain to scan your surroundings instead of looping into panic. Second, anchor with your senses. Hold an ice cube. Splash cold water on your face. Light a candle and breathe in the scent. Turn on music and really focus on the sound. Anything that engages your senses can interrupt the trigger spiral. Third, ground your feet. Plant your feet firmly on the floor and push down like you're trying to leave an imprint. Notice the weight of your body and say to yourself, I am safe. I am here. 4, breathe intentionally. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Longer exhales activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body that calms you down. 5th, name it out loud. Say to yourself or a safe person, I'm triggered right now. My body is reacting, but I'm okay. This will pass. Naming it breaks the shame cycle and reminds you the trigger isn't the truth. It's just a reaction. These tools don't erase the trigger entirely, but they can diffuse enough of the intensity that you're able to think more clearly and choose how to respond instead of just reacting. And that's the goal. Not perfection, not never being triggered again, but learning how to meet those moments differently so they don't control you. I want to share a quick example of what this looks like in real life. Not long ago, I felt one of my old financial triggers start to rise up during conversation. My chest tightened, my thoughts started spinning, and I could feel the heat in my face, the shame creeping back in. In the past, I would have either shut down completely or over-explained myself to everyone in the room just to feel understood. But this time, I used a grounding tool right there. I planted my feet firmly on the ground, focused on the texture of the carpet, and silently named 5 things I could see. I told myself, "You're okay. This is a trigger, not the truth. You don't have to let it run the show." And just like that, the wave of panic started to lose its power. I could breathe again. And I was able to calmly set a boundary in that moment instead of blowing up or shutting down. This is why grounding matters. It gives you a window of space between the trigger and your response. But here's the thing. Grounding tools are powerful for the moment. But if we want to truly disarm triggers long term, we have to heal the root cause. Again, we have to heal the root cause. That usually means going deeper into the wounds that created the trigger in the first place. This might be working with a therapist who specializes in trauma, CBT, EMDR, ART therapy, or somatic therapy. It could be journaling and exploring where these patterns started in your life. It might even mean having hard conversations with people who've hurt you or learning to set new boundaries. Because triggers are like weeds. If we only clip the surface, they'll grow back. Healing the root is how we clear the ground so those emotional landmines don't keep controlling us. And I want you to hear this. Healing does not happen overnight, and it's not linear. But every time you use a tool, every time you pause instead of explode, every time you're willing to look at the root instead of run from it, you're healing. So if you're listening right now and thinking, "That's me. I'm tired of being set off by things I can't control," I want you to pause. Breathe with me. Inhale slowly. Exhale fully. Let yourself feel how far you've already come, even if you think it's not far enough. Triggers don't mean you're broken. They mean your nervous system has been trying to keep you safe for a very long time. But you're learning new ways to be safe now. Ways that don't involve shutting down or spiraling out. And that is worth celebrating. You are not your triggers. You are not your past. You are someone who is learning, growing, and taking back your power one step at a time. And I am so proud of you. You have survived every single one of your hardest days so far, and that is no small thing. You are not just surviving. You are building a life you can feel safe in. Remember this. Every step you take toward awareness is a step out of survival mode and into healing. You are stronger than you think, and you deserve the peace you are fighting for. If this podcast resonates with you, if it helps you feel a little more understood or a little less alone, please consider supporting it. I pour everything into these episodes, my time, my heart, and my truth. And your support truly keeps it going. You can make a one-time donation or become a monthly supporter on Ko-fi. Every dollar helps cover production cost, supports future episodes, and allows me to continue creating and showing up with honesty and heart. Here's the link. Ko-fi.com/IamHopeInTheChaos. That is ko-fi.com/IamHopeInTheChaos. You're not just supporting a podcast, you're supporting a lifeline for me and for others who need to hear these words. I am not a licensed therapist, medical provider, or mental health professional. These experiences, stories, and insights shared in this podcast are based solely on my own personal journey and lived experiences. This content is intended only for educational, inspirational, and support purposes. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a licensed mental health professional or healthcare provider regarding your mental health or medical conditions. If you are in crisis or experiencing an emergency, please contact emergency services immediately by calling 911 or reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling 988. You are not alone. You never were, and you never have to be. And remember, there is hope in the chaos.